Hello, gamers, and welcome to Budget Arcade, the free-to-play gaming podcast to help you navigate through the growing realm of free-to-play games. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Mark.
And each and every week we play a free-to-play game, except for the weeks we don't, which this happens to be one of those weeks because we review a game each and every other week, and I misspoke. On these off weeks, Mark and I don't know what we do. We tase each other.
Typically, I say the correct things. You say the incorrect things.
Yeah, Suedo.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Well, so what we're going to do, I don't know if you know this, Mark. I'm a big fan of YouTube Premium. Are you familiar with this?
I am familiar with the YouTubes.
Well, the YouTube Premium. So basically,
I do not pay for YouTube.
Okay.
But tell me all about it.
I'll tell you all about it. Well, and it's really just a lead in where we're going. But YouTube Premium, you get commercial-free YouTube. You can download videos, and then the big thing is you get a music service, YouTube Music, a la Spotify. And I have the family plan, and my whole family uses it. We love it. It's great. But I got a notification from them that I qualified for the Stadia Pro kit or whatever, which comes with a Chromecast Ultra and the Stadia controller. Now, I've talked about this before on here. I've used xCloud, the Microsoft's game streaming service, and I was able to compare now what Stadia is compared to xCloud, and I figured I'd go over that with you. And you, Mark, as the game streaming layperson, feel free to lob your questions at me.
Oh, I will lob the questions at you, and they will be lobs. There will be no fastballs.
Fastballs are fine too. Just make pertinent questions.
So I think we should probably just preface this with Stadia's been around for about a year now?
It's been I think 1 year within a month or so.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the reason I think I got it. It was a year in, and they sent this note. Let me tell you something. Google's given me so much free stuff. I have all these Google Homes in my house that I got for free. I gave some away because I got so many of them. It's just...
your crazy. Google Home is the fourth host.
The fourth member of the podcast, yeah. And probably the most intelligent one. So, let me real quick. So I want to describe both the similarities and the differences of Stadia and xCloud. And the similarities are their game streaming services, but that's about where the similarities end. Both of them let you stream to an Android phone. They are not available on iOS at this time because of Apple's policies on game streaming. Oh, one other thing I should say real quick. I am recording on a different mic because my old mic busted. So if you notice a dip in quality, that's because of the mic. But I listened back to it and it actually sounded pretty good. But anyway, what was I saying? You know what? That's it for the show. We'll catch y'all next week.
Game on.
Game on. Yeah. So anyway, that's about the similarities, right? Everything else is pretty different. So let's, I guess, start with Stadia because it's the one that I think fewer people have really gotten their hands on than xCloud, because if you're a Game Pass member, you can use xCloud. But xCloud pretty much is exclusively you're streaming to a mobile device, and it's part of your packaged in Game Pass. Basically, if you don't have Game Pass, you're not really using xCloud. You can remote play to your console, but that's not what we're really talking about. We're talking about games ran in data centers, streamed to you, the user, and playing with a controller or whatever. One thing that I haven't checked if Stadia has this, I'm not certain. But touch controls, selections of touch controls on the Xbox will allow you to even play without a controller. So like Minecraft Dungeons and various other games. Now,
I think you should also tell us your internet numbers.
yeah, so I default at 100 down and 10 up. So 100 megabits down, 10 megabits per second up. So I am able to stream in 4K. And I have to be able to do that, I have to use the Chromecast Ultra, which uh, is a pretty. I almost want to say like Chromecasts are kind of archaic in a way because you have to, in order to stream to them, you don't open up an app on your TV. You open the app on your phone and then push it to your TV, and it feels like one extra step that doesn't need to be there. So but with Stadia, once you hook it up, you tune your TV to whatever HDMI port you have it plugged into. And one of the things is the controller is actually the biggest difference between Stadia and the xCloud one. And that's because this controller connects directly to your internet. It is its own device. And what that does is it's their way of reducing that lag latency. If anyone's listened to the episode about game streaming that Mark and I did before, the biggest hurdle for game streaming is latency between when you press a button and what you've done reflects on the screen. And so, what Google has done to kind of reduce that lag latency is separate you pressing a button. So, like on xCloud, when you press a button, it goes to your phone, and then your phone sends it up to the cloud, and then your cloud responds, right? So, what happens here is your upload is taking place from your controller. So, it's skipping a step. So, it's reducing that latency by milliseconds. It can't eliminate it, but it's reducing it as much as it can because it's taking one more step out of the process. That to me is like the coolest thing about Stadia is that's um, a pretty big advantage over Xbox. Although the Xbox One is still pretty good, this just kind of wants to cut it down as much as possible. The other thing is when you turn on uh, your Chromecast, it presents a 4 button code. So it'd be like up, down, A, B, or some combination of that, that you would then turn your controller on, put that combination in, and then it would connect to that device. So if I'm looking at my TV, that's what I would use, a 4 button press. Or if I'm on my phone, which I can do as well, it also presents a 4 button press. So they have improved this. It used to be that you could not wirelessly use the controller on your phone, but now you can. And I find it connecting it with a beautiful thing is that they don't have to Bluetooth it to my phone.
But you can use Bluetooth, correct?
I don't know. I haven't had the need. And I think
I've read that. I think I've read that you can use it. There is some lag, but the game is still playable.
yeah. So I tried using.
But that would bug the crap out of me.
Right, but there's no reason to. So
Right.
to get the best experience, it's also going to be the easiest experience. If you've pulled up Google Chrome on your computer, this is another advantage over xCloud, is you can stream on your computer. So if I pull up Google Chrome, it gives me that 4 button press code, and then I'm linked in. I don't have to Bluetooth my controller to my computer. I don't have to wire it in. It's a really awesome solution. I think that technology is so innovative and great because otherwise you have to use a wire or have to Bluetooth your controller. And if, like, I don't know about using Sony, the PlayStation controller. Actually, I did pair it before, but there's an extra step. You have to hold a button and then go into your settings and find your controller and pair it. And then, God forbid, it's your only controller. You have to go back to your console. You have to go in, press the button. I just think that the way they've handled this, I would love to see other game manufacturers, be it Xbox or Sony or Nintendo, kind of adopt this because I think it's such a great way to connect your controller to multiple things and use it.
Is this a example of kind of maybe the tech being ahead of its time a little bit.
I think you are right on there. I think this controller is the best thing about Stadia. I think that it's comfortable to use, which I mean, like whether you use some, I haven't touched the PlayStation 4 controller, but being that my Xbox One also uses these new controllers that come out with the Series X, I bought one because they're USB Type C and it's super comfortable, feels great. I think Stadia's controller feels great, and the the PlayStation 4 controller feels great. They all feel great. You're not taking a hit in the controller category if you're using theirs. As a matter of fact, I think you kind of get a buff. The only issue is I've seen that you can use it to like connect it to Steam and use it as a controller. That process is a lot more tedious than using an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. So now the other big difference here is that xCloud is really a subscription-based service. You're going to pay $10 a month or $15 if you're a Xbox Live Ultimate user or a Game Pass Ultimate user. And then you would download the Game Pass app and play that library of games. You are restricted to that library of games. You can't, if you bought the new Assassin's Creed, you wouldn't be able to play it on xCloud unless it were already part of the Game Pass library. Make sense?
Oh yeah.
So the flip side of that is Stadia is really a purchase ecosystem. They do have a $10 a month subscription, which allows you to stream in 4K and gives you like various perks for support. And then you do get some free games, all like Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus, right? So you claim. So I did a month of service because I wanted to test it out, and I claimed some games. And so I played some first-person shooters. I played some smaller indie titles. And this has been true with both services. The less intensive the game, I found the more enjoyable and like the less it felt like I was streaming.
Well, I think that's probably going to be the case until streaming becomes a consistent offering amongst all platforms. Is that, the more intensive, you got 1,000 things going on the screen at once, and everything's moving very fast. You're gonna have that hiccup here and there where you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I'm streaming. But I've from the reviews I've read on Stadia that have been written in the past month or two, they all seem to rave about Stadia's ability to make you forget that you're streaming.
To a degree.
And I think that's
so,
right. And I think that's a big deal. That's a big deal for people that are looking to stream, is that they want the feeling that they're playing a local game, but it's being
absolutely
streamed.
So I get my box, and I will say that I would say let's erase libraries and the way the systems work. I think Stadia, from a technical perspective, works way better than xCloud. I feel like the latency is less, and the big thing is the games load so much quicker on Stadia. You load a game on xCloud, and you're talking at least like a full minute. Like long times to actually just get the game first screen to come up, whereas Stadia, it's really fast. You select your game and it's like 5 to 10 seconds maybe. So huge difference there. The stream quality is more consistent as far as the picture goes. The latency is not as bad. The big problem with Stadia is there's no games. So the one thing I was really kind of interested in, and one of the big boons that game streaming tries to offer gamers, is that you don't need to upgrade your hardware, right? And so we are in the middle of a transition to this next generation, and next generation games are out. And I go into the store, I'm like, well, let's see if they have NBA 2K. I wanted to see what the game looked like in the next generation, and it's not there. You still have this current generation's version of that game. So I wanted to see how great something could look if it's using Google's data centers to process and run the software. And that's the
Instead of hardware.
well,
Is
it's
that what you're
still
talking about? You
technically
want to see all
hardware.
of
It's
it.
just not my hardware. It's Google's hardware. They're
Right.
big beastly computers, right?
Right.
And they're sending me the pictures, so I wanted to see what kind of graphics you can get out of that, right? Because that's the big pitch, that you don't need to upgrade your hardware. Your local stuff is always in spec. Like, you don't have to worry about how much RAM you need and all of that. And you get the best possible performance out of your games. And not
Now, do any of the gaming options as it currently sits offer any of this next generation titles that have come out? The like Valhalla or
well, I got this.
um,
I got the app on my phone.
Watchdog.
Let me pull it up. So, the Watch Dogs Legions is on here, but see, that's the thing, and I don't know. So here's where, and one of the reasons I can't test that is that Stadia is a purchase first model, right? So, in order for me to, like, I'm looking in here, they do have Valhalla, but in order for me to try this and see how good it looks and great it looks, I have to spend $60. I
Oh,
have to
really?
buy the game outright, but I don't get a physical copy. I can't download it to my system so I can play it when I have no internet. It's in the cloud.
Yeah. So you have to pay. So you're paying $10 for
Okay,
the
so
service,
this is where
and then you're paying the $70 for
so this is
the
where the
title.
offering gets a little bit more muddy. So think of Stadia Pro as Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus. You don't need
Okay.
Stadia Pro to go buy games. But you do need Stadia Pro if you want to stream in 4K. I'm not sure if online is behind that paywall or not. I would expect so, since that's sort of the industry standard. But for something like Valhalla, that is a single player experience, you would buy the game outright and just stream it. Now, the beauty of that, $60 though, you can play it on your PC, you can play it on your TV, and you can play it on your phone, right? But it's still a digital purchase that you can't download, right? It just lives in that cloud, and frankly, Stadia has not been very successful. And if they shut it down, you have no game; it's gone. So,
Right.
I think that Stadia might be giving you a next gen experience on Valhalla, but I can't tell you without spending $60. So,
Right. Well, see that's kind of that's a major turnoff for me for that. It's just that charge me a little bit more. Give me a $15 per month, rate for the service, and give me that game. If you're gonna charge for me the game, give me that game at a discounted rate, or rope it into a premium tier of
right.
your subscription service. Don't tell me to pay for the sub, and then I still got to pay full price for this game. It just seems
so
little...
if you didn't pay for Pro, you could still buy the game at the same price.
Yeah.
So
Right.
And that's really the big thing, is Game Pass is $10. Stadia Pro is $10. Game Pass, you get 100 plus games. But you can only play, if you're talking about streaming, you can only use them on your phone. But if you have a PC, you can locally download them to your PC. If you have an Xbox, you can locally download it to your Xbox. So that's really kind of the difference. Stadia is more versatile in the sense that you can play it in a streaming way to more things. Um, Now, there's a lot of shortcomings here, right? So the things start to break down pretty quick, uh, because the initial uh, time playing it is kind of a wow factor. So, oh, this is cool. They really like that. I booted up Risk of Rain 2 because it was one of their free games, and I told Jason, I said, it doesn't feel like I'm playing on a console. Like the video quality is so good, and the responsiveness of the controller is so good that, hey, this feels pretty good. It's hard to believe that I'm streaming this through a Chromecast. So then you play Destiny, and I found that in general, first-person shooters are near unplayable in a streaming format, no matter whether it's xCloud or Stadia. They're really hard to deal with. And I found that to be true here. I was playing Doom Eternal on xCloud, and it's impossible to play. And I found Destiny very cumbersome in a streaming mode. I did play, they also had Grid 2, which is a racing game, and that's when you start feeling that latency a little bit. The car feels a little more slippery because I'm pressing the button and it's not responding as quickly as I would expect it to. Whereas other games, smaller games, indie games, like they have all the Steam World games on there, those play fantastic. But it kind of defeats the purpose of streaming, right? Like, if the only thing that's going to work great in streaming are lower end games, then what's the point? Because the idea behind streaming and Stadia's pitch to us has always been, you don't need to upgrade your hardware. You can get the best and the brightest right now with the hardware you have. But it feels like the more intense the gameplay, the harder the hit it takes.
Well, and maybe the route that Google is taking with this is that they want to be the most accessible gaming platform, and maybe not the highest tiered graphics, or you talk about that lag a little bit, where if you're playing a very intensive game, everything's going on, you've got explosions on your right, and people running on your left, and it's a first person shooter, and you're firing over here, and something's coming down from the sky, and everything's happening at once. Maybe their thinking is, hey, yeah, there might be some frame rate issues and all this, but you can still stream it wherever you're at. You can still stream it to your phone or whatever Google device that you have, and that's cool. I don't know. I think streaming is to the point now where these companies, Microsoft, Google, Sony, maybe down the road, Nintendo, they're going to start looking at, what does the consumer want out of a streaming service, and maybe not emulating a PS5 or a Series X streaming to your mobile device.
So I think, and I think we've discussed this before, is that in its current state, Microsoft has it right. It's supplementary. It's a nice little add-on. Yeah. The problem with Stadia is it's all they have. They have no way to deliver this on local hardware, where you can actually have it stored and played locally to reduce that latency. So I feel like a lot of that conversation, we're treading over what we talked about in the streaming episode about the merits of whether or not streaming works. I have a few more things to say about Stadia. So what would you say, and you're not going to guess this, but what is, when you go on Steam, when you go on Xbox, and you go on PlayStation, what's the feature in the store that you would just never guess that's a game store would not have?
A feature that
Just
the game that
a feature we
game.
take for granted every time we load up Steam, the Xbox Store, the PlayStation Store. A feature that's been around since forever. Like just the most basic feature.
Uh, the ease of a menu. I don't know. I don't know.
Search.
Search. Okay. Yeah.
When you open up Xbox, Steam, or PlayStation, and you want to find Shovel Knight, you go to the search bar, you start typing Shovel Knight, and it brings it up, right? Stadia has no search.
Like none at all.
In its
Huh.
current state as of 11:28 at 5 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time, you cannot search the game store.
So how do you find a game? You just have to scroll.
Yes.
Oh.
Why? Now, granted, I think part of that is actually a testament to the size of their library, is that you can get through it in a couple swipes, right? I mean, how though? How do you not have search? So one of the things is if you're using Stadia, where you buy games, you can only do it on the app, the mobile app. So if you want to play Valhalla on your TV, you have to buy the game on the app first. Not really a big deal. It's totally fine. It's actually easier, or it would be, if there were a search function, because it's easier to search with that virtual keypad than on your phone than it would be on your TV. How have you had this out for 1 calendar year and I cannot search for a game?
Yeah, I don't think that Google has devoted employee time and resources to the search feature.
That sounds good. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. When you go to google.com, what is the very first thing you see?
It's a search function.
It's a search engine.
Yeah.
Google is a search engine first. How do you not have search on the Stadia app? That's my biggest problem, frankly, above everything else. It's just like, it tells you how far behind Stadia is from what we take for granted as gamers on every other platform available.
You know what talking about search features, and this doesn't have anything to do with Stadia, but the hands down the best search feature amongst any streaming platform, video games, movies, anything, is the Amazon Fire system. I don't know. Do you have a Fire Stick?
No.
No. Okay.
Luna, we may get into at some point. Luna is the Amazon offering that will probably stream through your Fire, whatever. And I guarantee you, Amazon will have a search bar, right?
Oh, their search function is hands down the best.
So, let me open the Game Pass app on my phone and see if they have a search bar before I go any further.
Don't edit this part out.
I won't. This is absolutely not. I integrity above all else. My loyalty to Xbox. Be darned if they don't have a search function on the Game Pass app.
This is a testament to the research that is put.
It is booting up, and I think I'm going to capture a screenshot. There we go, and you can see. I'm going to hit share, and we're going to send this to Mark over Discord here. Mark, send. I want you to tell me what you see in the upper right-hand corner of that picture.
It is a magnifying glass.
Yes, when you click it, you can search for stuff. How? Google! Google's primary function is search. All right, I'm waiting too hard on that. So, which one's better? That's hard to say, right? Because from a technical and the way it just flat out works, Stadia is better technology. It works better. It's more closer to the kind of experience you would need to have to make game streaming a reality. That being said, the value for your money is not good. Game Pass, you get way more games, and you can play them on your Xbox and computer, but granted, you have to install them locally, which is fine by me. They play better that way. And you can stream to your phone. It doesn't load as fast. The quality of the video isn't quite as good, but to me, it's a better offering for $10 a month. You don't need to pay pro, but why would you ever buy a game on Stadia?
I think with Stadia, it's an idea that started out as this revolutionary concept, because we're talking more than a year ago, and Google's been working on this much longer than that, where streaming video games wasn't really a thing. It wasn't being discussed. It may be in a future concept, but...
It was a thing, but it was way too early in the
Right.
technology. I believe the company was called On Live, because there was a streaming platform before all
Google
of that,
probably bought them,
and it wasn't any good.
Um,
Well, I know PlayStation bought one. It was starts with a K, I think. But anyway,
no,
go ahead.
I just think that with Google or Stadia, you're getting an idea that is still being fleshed out. You're getting a concept that hasn't yet been fully realized yet, and with Game Pass and XCloud and all that, you're getting a more realized concept from Microsoft than you are from Google. And I think that, I mean, we could do another podcast in a year from now, and if Stadia is still around, and examine the differences between now and next year. But I just think that Google is still tinkering with this concept, and it's not a fully realized thing yet.
Yeah. Well, it certainly doesn't feel it. It feels like a beta. And here's the thing I want to say. I'm a Google fan. I have a Google Pixel phone. I have Google Wi-Fi in my house. I got Google Homes all over this thing. Hey, Google, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks for asking.
So I got Google everywhere. I love Google. If anybody wants this to work, it's me, because then it's all in the same neat and tidy ecosystem. But this ain't it, bro. Not in this current state. So, and I don't really use xCloud that much because it is kind of cumbersome. It takes a little bit for the games to load. I would use it a lot more if it worked as smoothly as Stadia does. But that's how it is. There's pros and cons on each side, but at the end of the day, game streaming ain't here yet.
And
I don't think
I think
it's ready.
That also goes back to our previous conversation. Go back and listen to our future of streaming, whatever podcast. But
yeah, we remember what we named it.
Your hypothesis of streaming capabilities, where you pretty much said that streaming will never be a thing simply because it's dependent on the current internet option. And
well, because lag latency.
Right.
We have no way of deleting that input latency as the way technology stands today.
So, right. And so I feel like if you're going to dive into the Stadia offering, you're going to have to get into it knowing that, hey, this is going to be kind of a bumpy ride for a little bit. And hopefully, if you pour money into it, you're going to see a return on it. I don't know. I'm not going to dive into it like that. I'm going to wait for it to be fleshed out.
I wouldn't spend $60 because one thing that Google's known for, as a Google fan, is just shutting things down.
Because they can.
They've shut down a lot of apps in the past. They're getting ready to shut down Google Hangouts. I mean, it's a constant thing that they're doing. They're usually, when they shut one thing down, they replace it. Like they shut down Google Play Music and now you have YouTube Music, which to me personally, I think YouTube Music is a better offering. So if I'll say this though, if they ever shut down Google Stadia, I think that they would probably find a way to supplement you. So if you bought Valhalla, maybe they give you a Steam code or an Xbox code of your choice to kind of say, hey, our bad. But, who knows? They say they're in it for the long haul. There's been a lot of reports this week about how many games are planned for it, like 400. But in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that many because Nintendo drops like 100 games a week, like all these indie games. So what does that really mean? I don't know. So I'll ask you, the listener, have you tried either Google Stadia or xCloud? If you have, let us know your thoughts. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Budget Arcade. You can check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/Budget Arcade. Also, don't forget to do one of the other things I normally say at this point, patreon.com/Budget Arcade if you want to support the show. Manscaped.com/Budget Arcade if you need to buy some trimmers for your hairy bits. Hockeygaming.com/Budget-Arcade. If you want to get a t-shirt, use promo code ButtBiscuits. Our music is provided to us by the one and only Stimmage. You can find his music on MetroidMetal.com.
That was a lot.
It really is.
We have such a popular podcast. We have so many people to thank. So many people
we really do.
To throw out there as, hey, support this because they support us. We appreciate you all.
That's well said, Mark. Yeah. I think that's the best thing you've said on your time on our podcast.
#FreeMark.
#FreeMark. Game on.
Imagineville Podcast Network.
As a parent, no 2 days are ever the same. At Care.com, you can find trusted and flexible sitters to help manage your family's ever-changing schedule. Care.com can even help you out with housekeepers, dog walkers, senior caregivers, and more, so you can find care for all you love. And 100% of caregivers who use Care.com have been background checked with CareCheck, a key first step in hiring confidently. To get the help you need to make it all work, sign up now and find a great sitter at Care.com.